You see, people have this strange notion that enlightenment is a permanent stage. They think that enlightenment is like a one time thing. Like if you meditate for several years, you go to a forest or a monastery and you meditate for several years, and some sudden day you become enlightened, and that's it. That's the end of your spiritual journey. Now you have reached God realization, and yeah, so all your spiritual endeavors end after that. It's farther from what the reality actually is. The reality is that when you become enlightened, when you have your first awakening experience, you realize that you are just consciousness, and your consciousness, which is you, takes a enhanced, expanded form. In the state of awakening, you are an awakened consciousness. You are God realized. But that doesn't mean, or there should be no notion that God realized state, that God realized state is permanent. You shouldn't believe that. What is the first teaching when it comes to Buddhism? If you have studied Buddhism, the basics of Buddhism, the basic of the most basic teachings in Buddhism is impermanence. Nothing in this universe, nothing in this universe is permanent, which means that in consciousness, there's no such thing as permanence. Consciousness is ever changing, it's ever evolving, it's dynamic. The nature of consciousness is that it's always changing. That is the first property, you can say, or the quality. It's a quality of consciousness, that it's always changing. It's never really permanent. There's no such thing as, like, yeah, now this person is enlightened, and that's it. That's the end. There's nothing else to go or nothing else to do when it comes to the spiritual endeavor. Spirituality is the study, it's the school, the understanding of consciousness and the fluid nature of consciousness, and that consciousness can take any form, any shape. It can be formless, shapeless, which is its true nature in some ways, at least in as close as to thinking of it in an objective manner. If you want to look at consciousness, it's like, what is the truth? People like uh, enlightenment seekers and spiritual awakening seekers, they're in their mind, they have this idea of seeking the truth, right? So when it comes to talking about the truth or trying to understand the truth, the closest possible message when it comes to understanding the truth is simply that consciousness has no form, it's shapeless. Because what is infinity? How can there be a shape to infinity? If you want to put a shape or give a shape to infinite consciousness, which is reality, which is you, that consciousness cannot be something definite. It cannot be something like you can hold. Like, for example, this microphone is not infinite consciousness. This microphone is finite consciousness because of the very nature of it being a microphone. It cannot be a human. This microphone cannot be a human. Um, this microphone cannot be a smartphone, or this microphone cannot be a television, because this is not the property of a microphone. A microphone consciousness, which is this microphone, which is basically this microphone. It will sound funny to you if you are not aware of consciousness, or if you have never tried to understand what consciousness really is. But if you have some base, even if you have some rudimentary, if you have mastered consciousness, or if you have a lot of understanding, in-depth understanding of what consciousness is, then this will sound very like, yeah, duh, like obvious, that kind of stuff. But if even if you have some basic rudimentary understanding of what consciousness is, you realize that this microphone cannot be infinite because it has taken the shape, the color, it has the appearance of a microphone. It serves the function of being a microphone. It serves its job, it serves its purpose, but it's not infinite. It's a finite consciousness, which is part of the infinity. But that doesn't mean that only, uh, like, if you are in microphone consciousness, it doesn't mean that you are just a microphone. You are, for a particular time period, maybe, or for a particular um, situation, you might feel like you are this microphone consciousness, but your true nature is infinite consciousness. But the point is that consciousness keeps changing and consciousness keeps evolving. So the very belief or the notion that consciousness can be attained, the highest state of consciousness, if you may, if you want to call it the highest state, that's up to you. But it's really a different state of consciousness. Being a human is a state of consciousness, or being God is another state of consciousness. There is it would be actually wrong to say that God is above human, because God consciousness is above human consciousness. It won't be right to say in a way, because human consciousness and microphone consciousness and God consciousness, all these are different states of consciousness. But that doesn't mean that something is higher or lower. It's a comparison. That comparison is and because we humans are analytical creatures, so we are applying that finite analytical ability to try to understand what consciousness is, which is why we fail to understand generally what consciousness is, because we are looking at consciousness from a very ignorant point of view, if you may. But the point is that consciousness will always keep changing, because that's the nature. All you can do is to become aware. All you can do is become aware through your different consciousness practices or consciousness work, like they say. You can become aware of this property of consciousness, or this quality of consciousness, that consciousness it keeps changing. This like a rule. It's like a consciousness rule. It's not really a rule, but it's kind of like it's the nature of consciousness. And all you or me, all we can do is become aware of this nature that consciousness showcases. And so yeah, I just wanted to make a video about that. Um, hope you're all doing well. And uh, the fact that consciousness is not permanent, you need to understand that even if you became awakened, or it's not like awakening is not a goal. Like we set goals in our life, like we think that, oh, I must awaken, or this is something that I need to achieve. It's not like, it's a realization. It's a really profound realization. But you need to also realize that that's a state. There's a so I'll give you an example. Let's take the example of the most famous quote unquote spirituality teacher, like the most famous, so it's Sadhguru, right? Sadhguru, if you take the example of Sadhguru to try to understand the changing nature of consciousness, if you go to YouTube, and you will find Sadhguru, there's one official channel of Sadhguru, or one or two, I'm not sure. But there are multiple YouTube channels on Sadhguru, which, so you know how Sadhguru videos are made. Sadhguru sits for a session, and he talks about different things, just like Osho, Sadhguru, these spiritually enlightened beings, they talk about different things, and the camera is recording whatever they're saying. So when the person who uploads these videos, what they do is they cut out like a 10-minute segment of from one of their talks, and maybe in that 10-minute segment The person was talking about a particular topic that is relevant to human consciousness. So what they do is they will upload the video with the title of that related relevant topic. They will put the YouTube title as that, and that is how Sadhguru videos are made. It's not like Sadhguru is thinking, oh, now I need to talk about diet, like whether you should eat meat or become a vegetarian. Oh no, in this video I will talk about like what I am doing in this video. In this video I have um, a background mindset that today in this video I'm going to talk about the changing nature of consciousness. But Sadhguru, or like people who have achieved a higher state of consciousness, they cannot do. I mean, it would be actually counterintuitive if they want to do that, even though they do, because like in a way, like they are asked a question and they answer that question, so they direct their consciousness for that particular point towards that particular point. But generally, what they do is they talk about a lot of things, and you have to kind of dig and like find out the particular segment that meets your requirement. That's kind of how spiritual teachers deliver their talks. Um, Now the point is that what I was trying to say, that in if you watch, listen to Sadhguru, and if you watch a lot of his videos, you will see that, and if you're careful and if you're aware, you will observe that in every video, Sadhguru doesn't have the same consciousness. Even a person like Sadhguru, his consciousness keeps shifting. You can clearly observe that. In some videos, his consciousness, he's much more aware, or he's coming from a much more God awakened conscious state. His entire demeanor, this appearance, it will change. Um, in different videos, you will see different consciousness of the same human embodiment, but of different consciousness, basically. The same appearance of the same human, but showcasing different states of consciousness. If you're observant, you will clearly notice that. And there's also another factor that plays into that whole thing. You are also a finite human consciousness who is listening to another um, consciousness, or another consciousness. How do you say that? Like another projection of consciousness, if you will. You're listening to another projection of consciousness, which is Sadhguru. Now your human consciousness is also changing. It is also not fluid. It is fluid. It is also not permanent or fixed. So now that also comes into the picture. So be mindful of this, that whenever you are listening to someone, and whether it's me or anyone, um, so you can use this video as an example. If you listen to this video, next time try and be observant of this. Let's say you're listening to this video, okay? You listened everything I said, fine, note it down, like become conscious of whatever you understood or didn't understand, fine. Watch this video like 6 months later or 1 year later. You will clearly see that you will have a different outlook. It's like when you watch the movie, let's say you take the example of a movie. You watch one movie today. Let's say today you watch a movie. Let's say exactly after 1 year, you watch the same movie. You will have a different conscious experience of, even though the movie is same, it's you're watching the same movie, but then again it's not really the same movie, because you as a conscious being has changed. Your own consciousness has changed. So how is it the movie is same? It would be actually inaccurate to call that the movie is same, even though technically in human language, speaking in terms of human language and human analytical uh, perspective, from a human analytical perspective, you are watching the same movie. But because you are consciousness, which is the movie is happening in your own consciousness, and because your own consciousness from today compared to 1 year after this this present moment, which is an imagined time frame again, but keep things simple, if we imagine that you're watching that same movie 1 year later, it's not the same movie because you have changed. You are a different conscious being. Maybe your consciousness has expanded or contracted, so to speak. But the point is that consciousness is changed. Maybe you're in a state of more better consciousness, like better in the sense closer to God. Yeah, I guess so. In a better consciousness, or you might find yourself in a maybe in an unfortunate situation or something. You might find yourself in a more restricted consciousness, in a more finite consciousness. Maybe you're going through some tough times. Generally, when human beings are going through tough times, what happens is the consciousness kind of shrinks in a way, like so to speak, the consciousness shrinks. So they experience a different kind of consciousness, which is not very enjoyable or something like that, or like it's not it's not enjoyable in the sense that it's like it's more of a, like a suffering kind of consciousness, because you're deceived. There's more delusion. You're deceived because you're unconscious, right? See, consciousness shrinking is synonymous to unconsciousness. So the more unconscious someone is, the more they suffer, because suffering is not realizing or not being conscious. When you're unconscious, you're going to suffer because you're like, what is happening? It hurts so much, or something like something happens, and your unconsciousness is the reason that you suffer, because you're so attached and so identified with that negative, or like quote unquote maybe negative experience, that you suffer the suffering. It's like suffering exists. Suffering is again a basic teaching of Buddhism, and suffering is a reality. It's another property you can think of consciousness, suffering. But the existence of suffering doesn't necessarily mean that you have to embody it. Suffering exists, but so does happiness, so does joy. But that doesn't mean that you have to attach yourself to a particular aspect of consciousness, like suffering. So this is, let's say, this is suffering, and this is happiness, and this is joy, and this is sadness. Why even attach yourself to one particular aspect of consciousness? Because you are an observer, you are a witnessing consciousness, or you are a consciousness witnessing yourself. It's like looking yourself in the mirror. So the ideal state of existence, or the most if you want to understand something, you have to detach yourself from it. If you're attached to something, you won't be able to understand. You will be able to experience it, you'll be able to embody it, but you won't be able to understand it. That is how consciousness works. In order to become conscious of something, you have to pull yourself out of it. You have to zoom out and look at it from like a helicopter. Like you have to look at it from a helicopter point of view. You may be living in your apartment, right? But like, so for example, this is an apartment, but let's say I jump on a helicopter and fly near this building. The entire appearance of the city that I live in is completely different. I will get a completely different perspective of the same place, which is not really same, because I'm looking at it from a complete god eye kind of point of view, an eagle's point of view. So ob- in order to understand something, you have to be an observer, and to be an observer, you have to zoom out. You have to look at it from the zoomed out point of view. So yes, consciousness is not permanent. Consciousness is changing. That is a very basic understanding, and from that understanding, you can realize that there's no such thing as a permanent enlightened being or something like that. Consciousness keeps changing, individual consciousness, if you may, and also collective consciousness. As you can see around the world, consciousness is always changing. Collective consciousness is always changing. There's always a new world order. There's always one country is dominating other countries. And then again, 10 years later, you see that another country is dominating the country that it used to previously dominate them. So it all keeps changing. Consciousness is a flow, it's always flowing, it's always changing. The best thing you can do is to become aware of it, to become conscious of consciousness, and look at life from that conscious perspective. Um, so, yeah, thank you very much for watching, and may you become conscious and be able to look at yourself more accurately. Remember, it's simple, like you are consciousness. So, the more consciousness work you do, now what's important is uh, to do regular consciousness work, meditation, yoga, psychedelics. Consciousness work is very important. You cannot ignore consciousness work, um, because consciousness work, if you stop doing consciousness work, your consciousness will shrink, and before you realize it, um because I can tell this from my own experience. I've fallen into this trap before, where I felt like, oh, I have meditated so much, I'm now so conscious, so aware, I understand so much, and suddenly I just stop meditating, and then I fall into the egoic victim trap of like being unconscious, and I become unconscious because see, it gradually sips in. You stop meditating today, tomorrow you don't meditate, the third day, fourth day, fifth day goes by, and then before you know, slowly consciousness sips down, it comes down, and you are again trapped in this whole human egoic consciousness and all the suffering that comes with it. So, if you want to get a better perspective on life, if you want to get a better perspective of what your true nature of who you really are or what you really are, then you gotta keep doing consciousness work, because it just and it's not really a works. I mean, you have to really stop looking at it from the point of view of work. It's more like um, it's more like bathing or brushing your teeth. Do you stop brushing your teeth? You brush your teeth every day, right? I mean, I hope so. You should ideally brush your teeth every day. Um, but that feels like a chore, right? Like sometimes I feel like, oh God, every day I have to brush my teeth. I wish there was like a magic formula where I could brush my teeth once. And maybe there could be some magical formula where I can brush my teeth once and that's it. That's the end of it. But it's kind of consciousness work is like that. I mean, it's you have to. It's a process. It's a process like sleeping. It's as basic as eating food or sleeping. It's so fundamental, and if you do it, it's just pay you back in dividends, and your life will change because you will change. Consciousness work, what does it do? It expands consciousness, so you become, that's why do you think spirituality is associated with becoming superhuman and things like that? It's a very it might, you might think of it from an egoic point of view. You might think, oh, you become a superman or something, you become superhuman, oh, you're above, levitating above us or something like that. It's not really, because everything is you, so you become that. You become, when you become the observer, when you become um like when you zoom out, you'll be able to see everything more clearly. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Thank you. Stay blessed. Uh, may you find happiness. May you find everything that you're looking for in life. And take care. Life is, enjoy life. I know sometimes life gets really difficult, but just enjoy it. I mean, it's uh, it's temporary, just like consciousness, human life. One day you will not be a human, so might as well experience what you have here. Take care.